I have a friend in sales. He makes a ton of money. He is a pure natural. He's worked in this jewelry store for most of his career. He sells mostly engagement rings. When he's not selling engagement rings, he's selling other kinds of diamonds. Probably 90% of his sales come from diamonds of some kind. A disturbing trend in modern weddings is that more and more people are borrowing a ton of money just to pay for their wedding. This is very dangerous for a lot of reasons. In general, debt is best used to buy any kind of appreciating asset, like a house or a business, or at the very least, something that's not appreciating, but a piece of equipment that you need, like a car, to get to work, to make money, to pay the debt. Even student loans are theoretically a good idea. They can be a good idea. If you borrow money, use the borrowed money to get an education, use that education to get a job, use the payment from the job to pay back your debt. So far that works, that's good. But borrowing a bunch of money for a wedding ceremony doesn't make a lot of sense. I have a friend who got married a long time ago. He was poor, she was poor, and their parents were also very poor. They were Vietnamese, and it's in their tradition for people to bring cash as wedding gifts. The purpose of bringing cash is essentially the same as bringing something from a wedding registry, like a toaster or a waffle maker or expensive silver, to help the young couple get started out in their life together. But my friend and his new wife, or his new wife-to-be, had no choice but to put their entire wedding on their credit cards, hoping they would get enough cash to pay them off. Once upon a time, a white wedding gown was a symbol of wealth, something that only rich people did. The reason it was white had nothing to do with purity. The reason it was white was to show off that they could afford to buy a dress and only wear it once. And a white dress would show off the cleanliness of the dress the most. The reason it was white had nothing to do with purity. It was to show off how clean it was. This was back in the day when you had to wash things by hand. So wearing a white wedding dress on your wedding day was an outward symbol that you were rich and could afford to buy a white dress that you could only wear once. Everybody could see how clean it was because it was white. But like all other trends that start out with rich people, other people copy them, but they don't copy the reasons. They only copy the behavior themselves and sometimes make up new reasons for the same behavior. Before, a white wedding dress was a signal that it was brand new and clean. But today you can buy a used wedding dress. You can rent a wedding dress. And so long as it's white, it serves a new purpose of signifying purity, a completely different reason. Kind of like the old days in Japan, shopkeepers would throw water out on the street in front of their shops. But that was because the ground was dirt. And the reason for throwing water on the dirt was to keep people from kicking up dust. Today, they still do that. They still throw water out in front of their shops, but the streets were made out of cement, so they had to come up with a new reason for doing the same thing. Now they say they do it because it lowers the temperature, because it makes the environment just outside of their shop more inviting to attract more customers. It seems that humans have a need to copy what other people do. Even if we need to make up a different reason for doing the same things, it's as if you don't know how to think for yourself. That if you don't copy other people, bad things might happen. That it might be too scary to think for yourself. It's too scary to act independently. It's too uncomfortable to leave the crowd behind and go your own way. During the entire wedding, my friend and his new wife were sweating bullets, worried that they weren't going to collect enough cash to pay off their credit card debts. The last thing they wanted was to start their new life together with a crap ton of credit card debt. I guess today people are so desperate to have a big wedding because that's what everybody does, and they can't even think about doing something differently than everybody does. And because they so desperately need to do what everybody does, they're willing to borrow a bunch of money just so they can do what everybody does. The funny thing is that the U.S. economy, which essentially means the global economy, is based on a continuous expansion of credit, of debt. Ever since the end of World War II, any time the U.S. credit hasn't expanded by more than 2%, the U.S. has had a recession. Our economy is clearly based on a need to continue to expand debt in any way possible, which means there's always groups of people figuring out different ways to create more debt. This requires money lenders and money borrowers, and it seems there's never any shortage of either. My friend just talks to people and makes them feel good. He doesn't know how. He's always been that way. He's just a natural. If he talks to girls outside of the diamond shop, he makes them feel good and they want to have sex with him. If he talks to girls inside the diamond shop, he makes them feel good and they want to buy diamonds from him.